I grew up being an avid reader. My parents were divorced when I was very young, and my dad lived in Connecticut and my mom lived in Nebraska. And so when I'd go to Nebraska for the summer, I'd go to the library, to the Omaha Public Library, and borrow the maximum number of books, and then read them sort of one a day and return them, and do the same thing about 6 times during my trip. So I read a lot, and I spent a lot of time in libraries. My junior and senior year of high school, my bus route changed, and I got dropped off of school about an hour before classes began, and I went to the library every morning and I read the New York Times, and that actually was probably the best preparation for political science major in college that I got. Today we use our libraries primarily actually for our children. So I have 2 small children, including a 3.5-year-old, and who loves reading, and even my 1.5-year-old daughter, loves story time, and so we go to the libraries for that. Well, I think that libraries are the reason that people read. I was just talking to a group here in Chicago, and I pointed out that at the time that we started reading books in around 1450, when movable type became prevalent, within 50 years there were 50 million books in Europe. And but the other things that people were doing at that time, they don't still do as much. There were fox hunts, there was shin kicking was a popular sport, there was public executions were actually probably the #1 spectator sport. So the fact that people read now is actually a little surprising, and especially considering digital media, considering video games, TV, movies, all of the other things that people could be doing. We ought to be surprised that people still read, and in as many numbers as they could. And I think it's because of libraries. I think libraries are actually the keystone species in the ecology of reading. I think that the publisher strategy, large publisher strategy, I should say, to libraries is understandable, but it's short-sighted and it's misguided. I think that libraries are one of the best sources of recommendations and discovery for books, that they're greatly underused by publishers to develop backlists for authors, to introduce new authors to book groups and to communities, and to generally promote books. Libraries are the one outlet in the entire country that isn't afraid of being showroomed. Libraries are happy for you to come and look at the books and buy them from a bookstore if that's what you want to do. And there's not too many places. I'm a consumer marketer by training, and we don't have any place that we sell to that's happy to have you come in and not buy there. But libraries actually will support that. But I think the biggest issue with ebooks is that we know that reading habits are changing quite dramatically. So according to the Codex Group, between 2010 and 2012, you went from about a fifth to 2/3 of frequent readers. So the 42 or so million people who account for the majority of book purchases in the U.S. now have e-readers, and they're reading ebooks. And we know that e-book readers actually read more often, they buy more often, and they become more prolific. So e-readers in general, though tablets aren't as good as single-purpose reading devices in terms of the way people read, having an e-reader actually makes you more of a reader, and that's good. The problem is that libraries are getting pushed out of this cycle. So if you look at access to books, at least 4 out of the 6 major Big 6 publishers are not providing all of their books nationally to libraries. The ones that are, some of the books cost as much as $84 or more for a copy that would cost a consumer $12 or $14.99. And I think it's a problem because libraries have the unique ability to not just develop an interest in an author, but also a love of reading. And without that, the cycle of reading will not continue. So it's a problem.
What do you think the solution should be?
Well, I think the solution, frankly, is for libraries to work together, to use collective action to prove to publishers the power that they have. So I really think that libraries should take local programs which have existed for many, many years, that discover books and band together to nationalize them, and pick authors that they've discovered locally and make them bestsellers. And it's well within their power to do that. And once they do that, publishers have budgets to promote and develop authors that largely have been devoted to chains like Barnes & Noble, which now is selling fewer books. They've changed the volume of merchandise that they're selling. They're selling a lot of other things, and they've walked away from the Nook. So there's an opportunity to capture some of that, to get publishers to sell ebooks to libraries free at competitive terms for consumers, to make physical copies available, to make advanced copies available to reading groups. It amazes me that every publisher doesn't have a program to target certain authors and to make advanced copies of their next book available to reading groups throughout the country, because that would be a great way to develop a new author. In addition to training, marketing, and teaching, I'm a writer as well, so I have a book out, a thriller called Operator, which hit the top 100 on Amazon last month.